right there. I'll show you. There it is right there. This is my table saw crosscut sled. It's a half-width sled. A lot of them that you see are full-width sled. Goes all the way over to here on the other side of the blade. This one I made smaller. I need smaller jigs to fit in my garage. I think smaller is always better in terms of jigs as well. Really, the only limitation with this half-width sled is the width of the material that you can run. And for me, I'm not really running a lot of big material through here, so this works out pretty good for me. If I need to cut something big, I can just use a skill saw and cut it down into pieces that I can use into this sled. Some other limitations with this sled are that there's no zero clearance support on this side of the sled, and there's no support of the workpiece on this side of the sled also. That could be a good thing and a bad thing in a way. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But I'm going to build some add-on features onto this that will help those two limitations as well, being the zero clearance on this side and being able to provide at least some sort of support for the cut piece of wood. And the basic construction of this sled is 3/4 inch thick plywood here for the base, and a 2 inch tall piece of 2 inch by 1 inch piece of maple as a backstop here. And the overall dimensions are 27 inches depth by about 11 inches width. So it's a pretty small sled. The intent is to be able to cut up to 24-inch depth pieces of wood to whatever width that you can hold on to. This sled has the usual chamfer on the bottom side of the backstop, and the idea there is to provide a place for dust to accumulate and not skew the workpiece, so not have the workpiece tilted because you've got some dust down there. So there's just a little tiny chamfer down on the bottom edge here. That's usual with these type of sleds. And the runner here, this guy right here, is made of solid oak. And I cut it, quarter sawn cut it so that the grain was vertical. The idea being there is to try and minimize the changes in size or warpage from day to day, with differences in temperature and humidity, so that the sled doesn't change in how it fits, or at least try to minimize that. I think that's pretty common. What most people do is they put hardwood runner on the bottom. And some positives with this type of half-width sled are that the cut end over here, when you're running it through, it's completely floating. It's free. Whereas the full-width sleds, depending upon certain things, such as, like, say if your workpiece has a little cup or a bow to it, there could be pressure on the cut end of the workpiece as you're running it through, and that can, worst case scenario, lead to bonding of the workpiece to the blade and maybe kickback in worst case. Whereas this one, it's completely free floating over here on this side. And then the other thing too is with this half-width sled is that once you cut the piece, it will fall away on this side. Completely falls away, and then it's stationary, right? Because it's just resting on the table saw. Whereas in some of these full-width sleds, when you're finished cutting it, the workpiece is stationary on the sled, but when you're moving the sled around, that workpiece is going to move also. And so if that workpiece brushes up against the blade as you're moving it back and forth, you could get a little nick on the workpiece, as you're moving it. Now, I guess you could always just grab the workpiece and move it away, or shut the blade off after you're done cutting. But I've seen a lot of people moving the sled. They'll cut it and they'll move it back, but that, like I said, that can increase the chances of scoring your cut workpiece. One of the benefits of this half-width sled also is that, say this is my workpiece right here, I can use the existing fence and dimensioning from the table saw to get the cut length that I want. So say I want 2-inch length, I'll set the fence to 2-inch, I'll slide the workpiece all the way over to the fence, and now I can be assured that I can cut 2 inches and I can run it through. One thing that you got to do is you got to have a free end over here. Can't have that thing binding on anything, so you have to move the fence away. But it's a pretty quick thing to dial into the 2 inches, set the depth, or set the workpiece to the 2 inches, slide the fence away, and now you're ready to cut. So that's a real advantage with a half width one over the full one, because you can't really use the fence when you're using a full width sled. Now, something different that this sled has that I haven't seen on other sleds, not saying that somebody hasn't done it, but I just haven't seen it, is that I've got hold down points. Basically, you can see the holes here are 4-inch centers. They're hold down points. I'll show how they work, but I just want to show the bottom here first. What I've got is some hex nuts that I embedded into the bottom of the sled and glued them in place. And that's what I use as the start, we'll say, of the hold down points. Here you can see the runner here, which I glued it and screwed it in place. This runner right here. So yeah, so you got those hex nuts on the bottom. Now what you can do is, or the reason why I have the hex nuts on the bottom is such that you can change the position of your mounting points without having to go up and flip the thing over or access the bottom of it. Because sometimes, you have some other fixtures and stuff going on the top side. You don't really want to flip it over and get to the bottom. And it's just quicker as well. Not having to deal with the bottom is going to be quicker. And let's see, so the hold down point consists of I'll show you an example of one of them. Is you've got a 6-inch hex bolt right here, and you've got a nut knob that I made right here, which is just a piece of plywood cut out, and a 1/4-inch hex nut embedded and glued in place, and you could just rotate that around as a hex nut. I've got a washer in there. I've got this clamp bar right here, which is really 2 pieces of 3/8-inch thick maple with a 1/4-inch spacer in there as well, and that just allows the hex bolt, 1/4-inch hex bolt, to slide. It gives you ability to more flexibility in how you're going to clamp. I'll show more of that in a minute. The last part of it is 2 hex nuts on the bottom that are tightened together to have a set depth here for this part right here. This is the part that engages the hex nut on the sled. Last part here is a washer. And you just set up a position. Say you want the clamp piece right there. You just screw that in, and you take like I use 7/16 wrench and just put a little tight. Doesn't need much. Doesn't need much at all. So that now you've got part of the clamp mechanism right there. The other part is these stop blocks right here, which you can set different depths. They're 1-inch increments, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 increments. You can set the depth to whatever you want. Then the last part is your workpiece, You know, so you can set your workpiece to whatever position that you're wanting to do. Say I've got a really small, a really small workpiece like this that I want to cut, and I don't want to hold my fingers right here, right next to where the blade is. I can use this setup right here, and I'll clamp down on that like this. Right there. That piece is not going anywhere. I don't need to have my fingers anywhere near it. And you can safely cut extremely small pieces of wood with this type of clamping system. That's one use of it. Is to clamp the actual workpiece. Let's see. Yeah, so the back to the reason why nuts on the bottom is that to move this, now all I simply need to do is just back out the bolt. I don't need to mess with these two nuts down at the bottom. Just back this out right here. Just back this out right here. Move it to a different location. Like right there. Push it down. Some of these screw holes are not quite, I made them kind of tight into the plywood, so sometimes I have to actually wrench these down, but I think they're going to loosen up a little bit to where I'll be able to just kind of push them straight down till the bolt engages the nut, then just put a couple of turns on it to tighten it down. You really need it very tight at all. This needs to be just to be there. And then, yeah, then you can change your position to where you want to clamp some other type of workpiece, you know, in there, whatever it is, you know, and then you just tighten it down like that. And that guy isn't going anywhere right there. Now, that guy's not going anywhere. So I mentioned about the holding the workpiece. There's another thing that you can do too with this, with this hold down system. I've got several of them made. I made about four of them right here, and they're different lengths of the clamp bar as well. You know, just to kind of give me some more flexibility about what I want to hold. And I made 4 of these stop blocks also. So another thing you can do with this is I have this just a flat piece of maple. It's got a straight edge right here, and it's kind of got a backstop right there also that's just screwed down. And the idea there is that I can set up this backstop to cut miter angles, for example, and I can take one of the and use several of these guys to clamp down both the workpiece. You know, like say I can take one of these guys, put it right here, clamp that guy down. Just do it real time here to show how fast it is to set this up. Oops, I forgot the washer on there, but that's all right. Now I'm going to put the washer on there. Back this guy out just a little bit. Put this guy in. Adjust this thing here. And this is again just a kind of a template basically, where you could create repeated cuts of the same cut at different miter angles, for example. And you probably want to have a couple of these guys holding the template, we'll say. I forgot the washer again. I'm going to put a washer on there this time. What I thought about was actually going to weld all this together. These pieces here, the 2 nuts, or maybe even just 1 nut and a washer. That way I don't have to deal with the washer, putting the washer on individually, just to kind of speed things up. But that might be some point in the future where I do that. Already, it's just really super fast. I mean, you can see kind of just doing it real time here, setting that up. You know, we just put that guy like that, just clamp down on it, right there. That guy is really secure right there. Then you could put your workpiece in there. That's the next thing you want to do. I'm going to lower that. Lower the blade. Put the workpiece in. The workpiece can run up against the backstop there, so you get a nice consistent position every time. And then another thing you can do too is a little spacers. you know, if for example I wanted to say I wanted to clamp down right here, and I guess I gotta kind of move things around a little bit. But say I wanted to do something like this. This is just how easy this is to adjust and clamp stuff down. So since this piece here is smaller than my backstop, I'll take a little spacer right here and then just run this guy down. This guy down right here. Guy, tighten him real quick. Okay, like that, and then put my backstop right here. I'll probably run that guy up on the next one up. Like that, and clamp down. Like that, and now this workpiece is not going anywhere, actually. You could probably put 2 of them on there, but I don't know if it'd be really even necessary to put 2 of them on there. So now, yeah, I've got 2 clamps holding the template or the backstop piece, right? And then another clamp holding the actual workpiece, right? So you could do that. So you could cut those. Now the other feature with this too, that you don't see a lot with these other guys, I don't know if I've seen any of them do it, but I've got it set up so you can move it over to the other side of the table saw, right? And so once you do that, once you move it to the other side, now I can do bevel cuts, right? I could change this angle right here to be, say, 20 degrees bevel cut, and then, you know, imagine this fixture over here that I had over on this side, this guy right here. Let's just move this guy over. This same setup right here, flip it over. So flip this workpiece over right over here, like this, and now I can actually have a compound miter bevel cut now, something like that right there, which is you just can't do with a lot of the table saw sleds that are out there. Something like that. Just do it real time, set it up real time here for you. So you can see, and maybe I'll make a cut just so you can see that it actually works. And let's see. So it does take a little bit of thought here on how you want to clamp it, but it's a pretty quick, easy setup usually. But very flexible. That's the thing about this is that you can do a lot with this. Yeah, so that guy's cut there. That guy's clamped down right there. I can move this guy out of the way. And yeah, that's basically ready to cut. That. So I've got some, I don't know what this miter angle is here, but maybe it's 20 degrees. I've got 20 degrees as a bevel cut as well, and just run that through real quick to see what that does. Take that out right there, show you. There it is right there. Okay, again, it doesn't have a zero clearance on that backside right there, but that is something that I'm going to add as another feature here. Just kind of on this side, it's going to need to be something a little different, like a sacrificial strip basically. So that each time you change the bevel angle, you may need to replace that sacrificial strip on this side. That's just going to be something you have to deal with, but it does give you these type of it's a beveled miter cut, and that's tough to get with a table saw sled. Some other things that these hold-down clamps can be used for is holding other jigs. Some other jigs that some things that I'm going to be making for this table saw sled are a miter angle jig that could be used for making picture frame 45-degree angle cuts, for example. You can do that with this type of jig anyway, as is, but I think this other jig will be just a little quicker. And then another one is a spline jig for making boxes. And I'm going to make a bevel jig also, which will be essentially a vertical wall that clamps down to the sled on this side. And then you can rest vertical pieces of wood and then run those through and make bevel cuts on the end, acute angle bevel cuts on the end of the workpiece. And also, the other thing I'm going to do too is take this thing and move it over to the other side. Is I'm going to make a back that down. I'm going to make a stop block for the fence on this side right here also. And the stop block is going to have a 1-inch spacer on this side right here. And so you kind of envision like a 1-inch spacer right here that your workpiece will butt up against first, and then you'll be able to run that through. But before the workpiece starts to contact the blade, it will have cleared the stop block on the fence. And because this width right here is going to be exactly 1 inch, I can use the table saw fence dimensions. I just add an extra inch, basically. Or I'm sorry, subtract an inch from the dimensions that show up on the table saw. So it will be a way that you can do cuts safely without moving the fence away, and then also you'll be able to do repeated cuts. So you can run that through, do a cut, bring the workpiece back, run it through again, so you can do multiple cuts and the exact same length. So there's some other ideas that I'm going to be adding